It was quiet, eerie. That's the first thing we noticed about the crash scene.
Jesus became real to me at the age of 20. Just a series of events that were going on in my life, and the words of that Jesus wants to have a relationship with me, and I came to the conclusion that God was calling me. It's just like God just grabbed me, and I woke up the next morning and I literally felt like a new person. But one of the issues that I struggled with as a 20-year-old, as a new believer, is my social activity, just about everything I did, involved drinking. So it was about that time that somebody told me about a coffee house. Every Friday night, this little coffee house would invite a Christian rock band. And I went there as a brand new believer, as a 20-year-old, and met a bunch of young adults and got introduced to Christian music. It was just awesome. I went to that coffee house every Friday night for about 2 years. I decided to go to school in Montana and met my wife, and we were at school together at the University of Montana. I quickly fell in love, and what a blessing. You know, after college, we started really building the American dream. We started having a pretty idyllic life. AJ, he was 2 years old. He was just getting some independence, and it was just where we could do lots of fun stuff together. And when Peter came along, it was just a double blessing. I just love my kids. So as we got close to Thanksgiving, we decided that it would be good for Ann to go visit her parents. So we decided that Ann would fly with the boys early and that I would join them closer to Thanksgiving. And back then when you went to the airport, you could actually go onto the plane with your family. So I went onto the plane with them and got Ann seated and got Peter in Ann's lap and got AJ buckled in. So I went out on the observation deck, and it was a cool morning, November 15th, 1987. I see the plane, they push it back, it's taxiing. As the jet's taking off, I just decided to watch it, and it takes off, and I'm still just out there enjoying the morning, and the plane gets smaller and smaller, and I just keep watching it.
It was a horrifying sight. A DC-9 upside down in pieces on a frozen runway, and with so many people trapped inside.
We're calling airlines, we're calling state patrol, and nobody has any answers. The next morning we fly into Stapleton, and there's a delegation there to greet us, and they say, we still don't have any answers. But we have several women that are in the hospital that are unconscious and unidentified. And we have 2 children in the morgue. There's 3 Jane Does in 3 different hospitals. One of them we think is about 50 years old, but she's lactating. My wife is 22 years old. So we went to the 8th floor of the University Hospital, and inside an open ICU was a lady in a bed, swollen face, tubes everywhere, and they said, "Is this your wife?" And I couldn't even tell. So they said, "Well, we'll go get her personal effects." And while they were getting the personal effects, I came to the conclusion that, yeah, that's my wife. She's in it. And they said, "We're surprised she lived the night, and we don't expect her to live another night." My wife's in a coma, not expected to live. Just seen my kids in the morgue, and I was looking at a big piece of furniture, and I was looking at the window on the 8th floor of the University Hospital. I said, yeah, that would work. Somewhere deep inside, I could feel the presence, the presence of the living God holding me. And I came to the conclusion that now I'm going to stand here, vigil by my wife, and wait until she passes. And then that's the plan. And then I'll go be with them. And she stayed in a coma. A good 5-6 days. But the fact that Ann was getting better, I still had to plan a funeral for the boys. Right? I could feel the presence of the Lord inside of me was reason to keep going, because there were times where I just felt like I would just rather go be with the boys. Overall, I would just say God did a miraculous healing in her life. And the fact that if you met her, you wouldn't even know, maybe unless you were a neurologist or something. Just nothing short of a miraculous healing. One of the first things I did when I got to Jacksonville is I thought, I'm going to go see what's going on with that coffee house. When I drove by it, I found out that they had torn it down. They tore the building down, and they put a brand new shopping center right where that coffee house was. So by 1993, I felt like the Lord said, hey, remember that coffee house and how you always thought somebody ought to do something like that? I felt like God said, I think you should do something like that. I found an old movie theater that was built in 1947 that was dilapidated and trashed out and empty. I was able to buy the theater, form a nonprofit. Didn't know if it'd last 6 months or 6 years, but God's been using that old movie theater for 29 years now. The fact that we were able to have 2 more kids, the doctors weren't sure that she would be able to carry a child to term. And today my family is such a blessing. My older son Ben is living in Jacksonville, has a master's in education and works in the education field. And Jonathan lives in Portland, Oregon, and he's an instructional designer, but is also a musician, and just so grateful. God is still in the business of healing today. He healed Ann from so many physical things, and me from emotional and spiritual trauma. God is still in the healing business. It's just a really cool God story. It's a really cool joy story.